Well, 2012, it's getting very close now, isn't it? Up next, Barbara Hand Clow joins us. She's written an incredible book called The Mayan Code, Time, Acceleration, and Awakening the World Mind. And that's what we're going to talk about on Coast to Coast AM. Okay, here we go. Barbara Hand Clow is the author of 10 books and is an international speaker and ceremonial leader trained in the Cherokee and Mayan traditions. She was the acquisitions editor for Bear & Company from 83 through 99, where she published some of the new paradigm Mayan calendar researchers covered in the Mayan Code. She and her partner, Jerry Clow, led the Pleiadian Agenda activations, which are a journey through the 9 dimensions based on the Pleiadian Agenda and the alchemy of 9 dimensions. Her website, handclow2012.com, linked up, by the way, at coasttocoastam.com, offers monthly new moon readings and readings for the solstices and equinoxes, and she's our guest here on Coast to Coast. Hello, Barbara. How are you?
Hi, George. I'm fine.
Good. It's good to talk with you. Nice work, by the way, in your book, The Mayan Code.
Well, thank you. I'm very, very happy with it.
You know, this year of 2012, 5 years ago, seems so long ago, and now it's right around the corner, Barbara. It's coming up pretty fast. This acceleration is real, isn't it?
Yeah, it's true. And like for me, 25 years ago, it seemed like it wasn't a very long time that it was coming, because we started to really zero in on this in the 1980s. But boy, now we're getting close.
Tell me about you, Barbara, beyond what I read.
Well, actually, what I'd like to say right now is that this is a culminating work for me, which is kind of a privilege in this lifetime, because I've written many, many books, and finally everything has all come together for me. And so I'm having a wonderful time with this book, because I feel like maybe I don't have to write anything else. I might, but that's kind of a good feeling after being a writer. And my first book came out in 1976.
Good for you. How'd you zone in on this?
How did I zone in on this? Well, first of all, I've been a Mayan calendar researcher on my own, and also a writer in the field and a publisher. And I've actually written, in a couple of my earlier books, I've already written about the calendar. But in this book, I feel like I'm really dealing with what the calendar really means. And of course, I'm one of the researchers who has adopted the research of Carl Kalaman, the Swedish biologist, because there's different researchers out there with different opinions right now about what the calendar means. And so for me, when I discovered Kalaman's research, finally all the pieces I've been working with for so many years finally came together into something that made sense, which is basically the issue of time acceleration within the Mayan calendar.
Let's talk about that calendar for a moment, Barbara. What exactly is it?
Well, in terms of anthropology and history and Mayan research, the calendar is at least 2,500 years old at this point, and it comes from the Maya Olmec culture, which goes back way into the sort of myths of time. And the calendar actually covers at least 16.4 billion years of time. So this is a very, very ancient calendar, which people have been intrigued by for many, many years. But now that we're coming close to the end of it, of course, people are extremely interested in what the whole thing might mean.
Now, it was found on what? Blocks, tablets?
Yeah, the different calendar glyphs are all over Maya land, on the temples and on stele, which are standing stones. And then the one that has the longest timeline is the stele at Coba, which is a Mayan site in the Yucatan. And by getting the really, really long dates on this calendar, we began to realize that the Mayans had really figured out something very significant.
Now, some people believe that we're going to have a celestial event. Some people believe we're going to get hit by an asteroid. Some people believe nothing's going to happen. Tell me, let's go back to the Mayans themselves. Mm-hmm. If what we believe might be true, that they had this ability to forecast the future, how did they do this?
Yeah, that's the most interesting question, isn't it?
Sure is.
Well, yeah. Well, in my case, I was trained in the Cherokee tradition as a child, and then as an adult by Maya teachers. And I actually have experienced a lot of time traveling and a lot of shamanic journeying. And I actually believe that the Mayans actually were able to go right into the galactic center and decode the time codes. One of the things that we believe about this calendar is that it's actually sourced in the galactic center of the Milky Way galaxy. So I really think that they had the ability, and some of us have the ability in our current time, to actually take our consciousness into the galactic center and tune into the time codes.
Tell me about the time codes.
Okay. Well, what Dr. Kalaman discovered by researching the calendar is that the calendar appears to express 16.4 billion years of evolution. And then that evolution is worked out through a process called 9 underworlds. And each one of the 9 underworlds is 20 times less in length. Like the first one is 16.4 billion years. And then the next one is 820 million years, which is a division by 20. So each one of the underworlds is divided by 20 and becomes, therefore, 20 times less. But also what seems to be going on is each one of the underworlds, because the amount of time is shorter, time is also accelerating. So, for example, when we come up to the most recent underworld, which started in 1999, what we've been experiencing since 1999 is a very, very radical level of time acceleration, which is mostly being expressed through technology.
Okay, this 16-plus billion-year-old number he came up with, most astronomers and physicists say that the universe itself is a little less than 14 billion years old.
Right.
So where do we get the other 2 billion years?
Well, the dates that we're getting from science are around 13, 14, 15 billion years. As you know yourself, they've kind of been going back and forth.
Right.
And so for this date, this first date on the stele at Koba to be 16.4 billion years, to be that close to it, first of all, the Mayans might be right, and the scientists might not have it right yet. But regardless of that, that was one of the first things that got Kalaman's attention and made him think that something was going on here. And then the next underworld, which is called the mammalian underworld, which is 800 million years long, very closely parallels the evolution of species, the classes of organisms, which science only discovered really correlated in the last 100 to 150 years. So the second underworld, which gets closer to us in time, because if we go back 16.4 billion years, that's just too far in time. But when we get up to 800 million years, we begin to see some information in this calendar that we can actually recognize.
Now, Barbara, when you talk about time acceleration in this Mayan code, are we talking about just this incredible feeling of a quickening, a speed up?
Yes, and just a few weeks ago, scientists even started talking about evolutionary speed up, which really caught my attention. And what's happened for me, George, is first of all, I've been researching all this stuff, and then I've been out teaching it to a lot of students. And when we get into the actual issue of time acceleration, for example, the most recent time acceleration is 1999, but then the one before that is 1755, which seems to cover the evolution of industrialization. And then the one before that is like 3116 BC, which is the development of history and temple city cultures such as Sumer in Egypt. And what I find with students is when they tune in actually into their own bodies, they can feel that difference in the time of the 5,125-year historical cycle, and then the speed up with industry, and then the very recent speed up with technology. So the most important thing I think about any theory or any idea about history or anthropology is whether it resonates with you or not. I know in my case, for years and years and years, I first go into my heart and see how I feel, and then I use my head to figure it out. And this stuff really resonates with people, besides myself.
Now, do you have any inclination that what might happen in 2012 could be disastrous for us?
Of course.
You do? That's possible.
Of course I do, but I don't personally look at it that way because I think that things are actually improving with our species. It's just that as we get up to this point of making a critical leap, it seems that everything's falling apart. And so I personally believe that we're going to make it, and I think we're on the verge of one of the most difficult steps we've ever taken. One of the things I like to think about a lot regarding this research is the step that it took for the first amphibian to leave the sea and come onto the land and become a reptile, which was 315 million years ago. I often think of the step we're taking now as being similar to that step in magnitude. So I personally believe that we're going to make it, but that's just a belief. I also can easily see where we're on the verge of a catastrophe.
Well, so anything could happen.
I agree, yeah.
The people that you deal with, do they talk about the Mayan Code? Do they even understand it, Barbara?
You mean my students or just people in general?
People in general. I mean, is
Well,
the word getting out?
Oh, yeah, the word is really getting